On AM 560, The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Our 1-hour heating and air conditioning weather center forecast with meteorologist Steve Williams.
Partly sunny, windy, and cool today. The high 52. Partly cloudy, breezy, chilly tonight, low 36. For tomorrow and Friday, partly sunny. The high tomorrow 55. The high on Friday at 60. Showers on Saturday. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560. The Answer.
45 at O'Hare. Next news at 7:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560. The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by the Alpha Wealth Group, bringing the trilogy of estate, tax, and investment planning together. Visit alphawealthgroup.com for a free report.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Joe Biden yesterday at the Democrat-Socialist debate did his best impersonation of Kipling with his My Boy Hunter defense. How dare you, sir? How dare you talk about My Boy Hunter?
Well, somebody had to bring it up, and the candidates weren't, so Anderson Cooper did.
This president, Mr. Vice President, President Trump has falsely accused your son of doing something wrong while serving on a company board in Ukraine. I want to point out there's no evidence of wrongdoing by either one of you. Having said that, on Sunday, you announced that if you're president, no one in your family or associated with you will be involved in any foreign businesses. My question is, if it's not okay for a president's family to be involved in foreign businesses, why was it okay for your son when you were vice president? Vice President Biden?
Look, my son did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. I carried out the policy of the United States government in rooting out corruption in Ukraine. And that's what we should be focusing on. And what I wanted to make a point about, and my son's statement speaks for itself. He spoke about it today. My son's statement speaks for itself. What I think is important is we focus on why it's so important to remove this man from office. On the 17th, look, the fact that George Washington worried on the first time he spoke after being elected president that what we had to worry about is foreign interference in our elections. It was the greatest threat to America. This president on three occasions, has invited foreign governments and heads of government to get engaged in trying to alter our elections. The fact is that it is outrageous. Rudy Giuliani, the president, and his thugs have already proven that they, in fact, are flat lying.
And Biden went on, have you news of My Boy Hunter? Not this tide. When do you think that he'll come back? Not with this wind blowing in this tide.
Oh. And then they sang a song.
Joe, yeah, Courtship of Hunter's father. Sure. So Joe Biden also said something that continues to not be true, just as the other times he said it, which is that he never discussed anything related to his son's business dealings with his son Hunter. But Hunter's already disclosed that they did have a conversation about Burisma, and he repeated that disclosure on that ABC interview he gave yesterday morning. But I mean, I understand there's nothing to see here. Also, one other point.
Right.
He never answered Anderson Cooper's question.
No, he never did.
If it's wrong for a president, why isn't it wrong for a vice president?
Yep.
Maybe David Harsanyi can help him. David Harsanyi, senior editor for the Federalist.com, author of First Freedom, A Ride Through America's Enduring History with the Gun from the Revolution to Today. I would also suggest, David, you get a copy of your book, First Freedom, over to Bobby O and Mannequin Pete post haste. David, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So, what about that? How do we reconcile the standards for a president versus the standards for a vice president when it comes to ethical conduct?
Well, can I just mention quickly that Anderson Cooper's question. It was crazy. I've never in my life seen someone set up a question by basically answering half of it for the candidate, saying,
Yes.
obviously there's nothing wrong with what you did. You or your son, you're completely innocent, but, this is something everyone's talking about. I need to mention it. So that's basically what the question was.
That's true.
So,
that's true.
how does he know there was nothing wrong with it? Has CNN investigated what went on there? He doesn't know.
That's what they've been
Secondly, there
beating
is
that
something.
same drum since this whole thing began.
David,
There's
David.
no evidence of any wrongdoing.
There's nothing Anderson Cooper doesn't know. That's what you do. You have to start from that premise, and then everything falls into line. Yeah, it is worth pointing out that a member of the Ukrainian parliament wrote this op-ed in the Wall Street Journal this week saying there should be an investigation of this and some other things with respect to the 2016 election and Ukrainian involvement, sort of indicating that, right, this hasn't been debunked or bunked because it's never been investigated by the Ukrainians.
Right, so it would be fair to ask him the question, say just ask him the question and let him claim, claim that he's innocent rather than claiming that he's innocent for him. It was just such bias. It's almost, it's getting to the point where I can't even watch it anymore. It's just so annoying. But anyway,
yeah.
Your question is that it is wrong. It's clearly wrong that that Biden was not just on the Ukrainian board, but on the Chinese board, on the Amtrak board. He made a lot of money in this world because of access, and that was because of his dad's name. There's nothing wrong in trying to investigate whether his father ever tried to, and I'm not saying he did, but there's nothing wrong with investigating whether his father tried to steer policy in any certain direction to help his son. And it's not outrageous to think that he might have. Joe Biden's not a saint, and he has never been a saint.
Well, who do you think were if there was a winner last night, or has anything changed, do you think, in regards to candidates' positions, besides we know who's not going to be back is Tom Steyer?
You don't know that.
Oh.
Yeah. He could buy his way in, maybe. I don't know. I would say that I didn't really think there were any winners. I thought it was a really boring debate, and I thought that these candidates are not grade A top-level candidates, and none of them are. I think Joe Biden, just his answer to that question, he was all over the place, looking for the talking points he was given about Trump, trying to deliver them. Elizabeth Warren, I don't think, reacted very well to being a front runner. She seemed sort of, as a moderates attacked her. I think she seems even more radical. And so I don't know. It seems like a pretty big mess to me. It seems like Donald Trump would be this kind of candidate that many people would be waiting to knock off, and you get some sort of grade A candidates. I don't think you have that.
Our colleague here at Salem, Hugh Hewitt, has suggested that after witnessing last night and the previous debates, one of the things that Trump should do is not start from the premise that there will be any debates whatsoever, even if they'd be advantageous. And I think it's in part because of, for example, what you just described Anderson Cooper doing with that question about Hunter Biden. In addition to that, there's also no homework done, or at least they're not showing their work, if there was homework done, to push back on each candidate with respect to their answers. So when, for example, let me give you an example, get your reaction to this. Kamala Harris, I know a confession when I hear one or see one. Oh, do you? Well, you're the same Kamala Harris who, when you were San Francisco District Attorney from 2004 to 2011, withheld information about a police laboratory tech who'd been accused of intentionally sabotaging her work and stealing drugs from the lab that ultimately resulted in more than 600 cases handled by the corrupt tech being dismissed. In addition to, and I could go into chapter and verse on her record when it comes to wrongful convictions. So square that for us, since you're touting your credential as a prosecutor and somebody who knows a confession when she sees one and is concerned with due process and all those things. But there's none of that. There's just basically, it's your turn to issue some Jeremiah on whatever topic we're talking about. So why should Trump even participate in that? Who could he get a fair airing from in terms of moderators for a debate, with perhaps the exception of Fox?
I think it's a fair point. I do think it's a little bit different when you have one party debating and you have a lot of people debating. It's difficult probably for the moderator to push back on everything. Though clearly people were lying yesterday and there was no pushback, and it happened constantly. So it is a problem, and Trump won't get a fair shake. I haven't really thought very deeply about whether it's advantageous for him to debate. I think it might be because I think there were debates I saw during the 2016 primaries where it, people learned more about him and liked, sort of his attitude and what he was doing. So for him, as much fact-based as it is, an attitude that people like.
Who didn't speak a ton or didn't get a lot of airtime was Bernie Sanders. Do you think he did a good job trying not to look old and feeble out there? I mean, he had dandruff on his suit. I mean, it was just...
He is old and feeble, and that's fine. We're all going to become old and feeble. I can't believe a guy's still running for president after having a heart attack. I can't believe that the American people would vote for someone who just had a heart attack, who's at that age running for president. And I can't believe anyone, worse than all of that, I can't believe anyone would vote for a socialist. But, I would say that Elizabeth Warren's pretty close. Maybe her methods are different, but the end game is the same. So,
but Bernie's got the support of the young girls. I mean, AOC,
squad, yeah.
all of them, the squad, the Spice Girls are going to be promoting or endorsing him and hitting the campaign trail with him. Bernie and the Spice Girls.
I saw someone make a joke that it was weird that the squad would support an old white man rather than someone of color like themselves, as Elizabeth Warren is. But I don't know. I mean, they're
Elizabeth
socialists.
Warren is. Yeah.
But I think that, they're socialist, and he's a socialist, and that's where they feel comfortable. So they're just being honest. I don't see him winning this. I think you see him fading away. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't even, if he wasn't around in a few weeks. But that's just me speculating. I have nothing to back that up. But it just seems to me is weak.
Just in terms of setting the ethical tone, though, for the Bernie Sanders administration, do you think, like Joe Biden, he should make a declaration that his wife Jane will not run any colleges or universities if he's president?
I think he should. I wish someone would ask him, and I don't think they ever have. What kind of socialist has 3 homes? How many homes do we need? How many homes does an American need?
Yeah.
But no one ever asks him any of those questions.
Who should 1 or 2 of your homes be redistributed to?
Yes. I would like 3 homes. I don't have 3 homes.
You're talking about Bernie possibly fading, and that certainly does seem to be the feel of things. But so that leaves sort of an open third track with Warren and Biden. I mean, could you actually have the mayor of South Bend, this mannequin from the men's department at the Macy's from Mishawaka, be a serious contender for the nomination?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think there's enough charisma there or enough name recognition there for that to happen. There's not enough time for that to happen, probably. I still am not convinced that it won't be Biden, and it seems to be that it's Biden Warren to me. Unless someone else jumped into the race or something happened that raised one person above it. I thought it would be Kamala who was that third person, but it didn't work out, and I just don't. You don't see that much movement in the polls, and I just don't see why all of a sudden Mayor Pete would, all of a sudden, I don't know where he is, tied for 8th or whatever he is, or maybe he's above that, take votes. But people start falling out. Maybe usually those votes don't go to one person, or that support doesn't go to one person. It goes through, it's not the way you always expect it. Yeah. So I don't see that there's enough there for him either in that regard.
And Tulsi Gabbard, what do you think?
She's an impressive person in many ways, but she says things I think that about foreign policy specifically that I think she there are certain kinds of people who like her, and maybe a bunch of Bernie voters would like her, but I don't think the support's there in general.
Were you surprised at all by some of the notes of caution that were struck by a number of candidates about impeachment? I mean, there was certainly sort of the vociferous, like, who is most for removing Trump from office during that 20 minutes of coverage of impeachment. But Booker, even Bernie, along with Tulsi Gabbard, suggested, we can't make this all about impeachment and removing the president.
Well, it makes me think that it's not as clear cut the support for impeachment as the media wants us to think it is. I think that also because Nancy Pelosi is unwilling to take a House vote on the issue. Maybe there are other reasons there, but I just don't. I think there are moderate districts or moderate candidates in swing districts who are a little bit cautious about that. You heard whenever they say all the evidence is in plain sight, it means that there actually isn't enough evidence and that you have to just, there's nothing behind the scenes. There's no more. Everything you see is what you get. I think a lot of voters expect that there's going to be more evidence coming forward of, of Trump wrongdoing. But I'm not, in this regard, but I'm not sure that that's true. I think that the caution is well warranted. I don't think people are going to like what happens when impeachment actually moves forward, and I think some of them foresee that.
He is David Harsanyi, senior editor for the Federalist.com, author of the book First Freedom, A Ride Through America's Enduring History with the Gun, From the Revolution to Today. And again, David, make sure you get a signed copy over to Bobby O'Rourke.
For sure.
Yeah, David, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM 560 mobile app today at 560.